I'm throwing up another little video to kind of show this powder coat stuff, for the carburetors that I do. Typically, I can say this without a doubt, if the powder coat is cured correctly, the only thing that will touch it is your old-fashioned aircraft stripper. Okay. I guess the point of the video is only to show that I'm not perfect by any means. I wasn't happy with this overall color. It's a candy color. As you can see, this is the main body and this is the other components over here. So you can try to bead blast that off of there, and I'm telling you right now, if you can bead blast that off, then that powder coat is not cured correctly whatsoever. The only reason that I can say this is when I first started doing this, that was the case. I could actually powder coat a part or a component or whatever, even if it was valve covers or brackets or anything of that sort. Even though, it cured, it flowed out, it looked very good. It was no better than paint. The goal, oh boy, that's so strong. The goal is to, on this powder coat, is you have to get that metal temperature up to temperature of what the product says, for powder coat. Yes, it'll start flowing out, but as far as how it adheres and how it cures, it has to have, that metal temperature has to be what the advertised temperature is. So, as much as I hated to do this, because I hate doing it, because that for me is just, to go back over your own work. I mean, it really sucks. I hate doing it because I'm like, I got other things to do. I have other jobs, so to backtrack on something like this really sucks, but at the same time, if I'm not happy with it, it's not going out the door. So even though, I know that the cosmetic aspect doesn't make horsepower, and I guess, at the end of the day isn't going to make any damn bit of difference, but at the same time, when you do side work, or if I was to hire, some of my work out, which I very rarely do, my first impression is obviously visual. So if I visually am not happy with what I just spent money on, then I'm always going to be unhappy. So I guess I just wanted to kind of, and I hate to stereotype, a lot of times you'll see a lot of the carburetor industry, you'll see a lot of the big boys. I mean, I have yet to see any big boys or heavy hitters, so to speak, that like powder coat. I mean, it's all, Cerakote, Teflon coat, hard coat. I mean, several different coatings, but I typically will run off what I can get, easily over the counter, so to speak. So, I'm hoping to very soon get into the dichromate. The dichromate, is, I'm not a fan of it, but at the same time, it's all that, it's just because you essentially have to kind of know your metals. These old school bowls are by nature zinc. From my understanding and my, I guess, research, the dichromate essentially is just a dye that you can basically dye this material. Now if it's a steel part, say like for the throttle shafts, there's a couple guys, one guy in particular that shows promise as far as knowledge is concerned to be able to pick his brain, or you know, get pointers, so to speak, because that process, to my understanding, even to this day, as many years as it's been implemented, is such top secret for whatever reason. And I had been told from another competitor that I don't want to classify him as competitor because I'd like to get away from that, but I had been told that the reason of the top secret is when it comes to restoration, there's big money to be had. For example, those just a standard old 3310 off of the GM that has the GM code on it. I mean, I've seen them things upwards of $1,500 on eBay, all restored. I had a couple of them cores at one time, but didn't know enough to keep them. So, but getting back to the point of the video is, you see powder coat getting, I guess, cussed or laughed at. It doesn't have the fuel, being able to hold up to fuel, and several different things. Like I said, if it's cured correctly, that's not an issue. It may soften it, but it will attack it. I mean, the only reason I say this is I've learned the hard way myself. I've done carburetors 3 or 4 years ago that, I guess lack of better words, was not the same deal. You could hit, you know, what I just did with the bead blaster and it would just come right off like paint. That's not where I wanted to be. So over the course of the years, I've learned processes, and there again, the powder coat thing is, you know, you see a lot of the stuff that I've only seen one other person or builder, or has been around for a long time. He's out of California. I think we all know the Carb Shop, his products. I don't know if he outsources. It's all powder coat, and that stuff, I have done R&D on it to where I've actually left stuff in fuel immersed for several weeks, and it will soften it, but it will never take it off. So I picked his brain a little bit here and there, but just like any other situation, he really didn't want to give up any info. And you know, I honestly, at this point, where I'm at with it, I can't honestly blame him now. I mean, it's frustrating to be able to get the correct info if you're kind of up and coming or what have you. But it is out there. I mean, you really have to dig deep. But like I said, the powder coat is not liked on several of the high-end builders. So I had, you know, I follow some of them, and I'll post certain things on there, like, well, because a lot of times you see it really, the stuff that they post that they don't like is really half-assed. I mean, you've got down in the Venturi, you've got powder coat, and then all the working areas. This one here, I haven't, there won't be anything down into here, because essentially what you're thinking of is, obviously this is dry airflow, but if you think about it, when it comes off the booster, you know, then it's aerosoling or whatever, or, you know, atomizing off the booster. It wants to follow that sharp edge, so you're going to get wet patterns down in here. So the idea is to keep that wet pattern away from the powder coat. This one here, obviously there's a couple things that they come out pretty decent, but I missed a couple spots, and the last couple last couple jobs, you know, it was down into here, kind of missed some spots, and the customer kind of complained about that, and why didn't you do the whole thing, and how come it's this and that and the other thing. And so at the same time, while it's not going to make shit of difference for horsepower, I have to kind of focus on that and just kind of take all that stuff into consideration to kind of better your product, continuing improvement. So that being said, this down here, like I was saying, they'll post, the heavy hitters will post, well, look at all this powder coat, and it's down into here, and it's flaking off, and it's flaking off into the fuel, and it's in the bowl, and all this other stuff. And quite honestly, I posted on some of them posts saying, well, if it's doing that or flaking off or what have you, then it's not cured correctly. And obviously, every time that I've done that, I've never gotten any response. So, you know, you're left with, okay, so are they bad-mouthing that to boost their own product or their own work? Well, I guess that's normal advertising, but at the same time, I just feel like there's a lot of misunderstood facts about this product, as well as a lot of other things out there. I mean, I'm still trying to learn the whole dichromate thing, and, you know, I don't have the interest for that. I have a fairly good concept because my mind works off of mechanical aptitude, so there again, yeah, I might not have experience in that category, but once I get to that point, you know, I'm sure gonna know everything I possibly can about it, and try to learn on my own. So, like I said, kind of recapping this here, which I didn't want to do because it slows the job down. I was supposed to have this carburetor done for this guy a week ago, but the base plate and the main body came out decent, but once in a great while, I'm not sure what happened. I think I actually overcooked these bowls, and it had somewhat of a brownish maroonish hue to it versus the candy. So when you basically, you know, put the whole thing to kind of mock it up, it just looked like total shit. So I felt that since I wasn't happy with it, that I need to change that. So there's no way that, I mean, I had considered putting it together, but I thought, you know what, if I got that in the mail, I would not be happy. So that being said, here's where I'm at today. So, like I said, the powder coat's cured correctly. The only thing that will take it off is this aircraft stripper. So, if you see a lot of stuff, I've had carburetors that I did 3 years ago that came back because of that same exact situation, to where stuff was flaking off. It looked like total paint. It just looked like paint, and, you know, the customer was upset. It's, you know, one of a couple things where they think that you either ripped them off or you didn't use the product you said you were gonna, and blah blah blah. And it's like, no, it's just, you know, it's a lack of not knowing. And I can tell you, anything that I done that long ago, it's not correct, and I'm man enough to say that. So that's what we're doing today, is stripping a color that I was not happy with, and hopefully the end result will be what I want, even though it's not mine. Thanks.